Hello, and welcome to the 80th episode of Recluse Horror. This is a daily horror movie review podcast. So just a little background on the project. Back on my birthday in April, I decided I wanted to watch and review a horror movie every single day. I have done so for the past 347 days. Although only the last 80 of them have been podcasts. Before that, it was text reviews. So today I watched another short film. This one is called Delivery from 2018, and you can find it on the Hazy Days YouTube channel. That's Hazy Days, like DAZE YouTube page, channel, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, this one was pretty good. It was pretty weird, but honestly, like, that's far from a criticism considering how much of the stuff that I've seen has been variations upon the exact same story. This one is, I guess it's also a variation on a pretty, standard story, but it's way weirder, in a good way. So it's about a delivery person who is on his first shift, who goes to deliver a pizza, I think. They don't technically say that that's what he's delivering, but he's delivering for a pizza place. And it turns into a horror movie, as those things kind of can. The acting was pretty decent. There's not a ton to, really judge it based on. I think I was much more focused on some of the other aspects, the weirder aspects about it, of which there are many. The actor here playing that character, his role was definitely important, but there was so much going on and so much that was kind of just off, that it made it less important that he be the central focus of the story, even though he is the central focus of the story. If you look at this thing on paper, there's nothing else to look at, hardly, for most of it. The cinematography was very good. There's some really neat shots in here and some really neat effects that they use, for camera technique-wise, that they use. The version that I watched, it's the one that's on YouTube, and I didn't see in the comments because I watch YouTube through my PlayStation 3, and you can't see the show notes or the video description on those, which is kind of irritating. So every time I've been watching a short film, I've had to then later on my phone go to YouTube to check those notes, and apparently the filmmakers couldn't get a good compression out of this to get on YouTube, and there is a version that is better, as far as clarity and resolution and everything. So I'm not really going to touch on the quality of that specific aspect or the effect that may have on the lighting. The lighting, it did seem a little washed out, but that's definitely because of the compression. If I had seen those show notes, I would have gone over to Vimeo, which is another video service, and they have the full version of that there, the full 1080p, I believe, version of it. And so I'm really not going to factor that into the lighting at all into that, because that so much of that can be screwed up by bad compression, so not their fault. This one got started pretty fast. I don't remember the length it was. I watched it a little bit ago and got sidetracked by a number of things before I got a chance to record anything. But it was fairly short, but it really, pretty quickly went right into the story, which again, as I said, was kind of weird. And I keep saying that, but it's definitely in a positive way. The visuals and the sound design both play into that. Now, I didn't watch this with headphones. I really ought to have watched this with headphones, I feel like. But even with that, again, the compression being as it is, some of the lack of quality or fuzziness can be chalked up to that, because there was clearly some thought put into the the sound design. So it's definitely worth... if you're going to watch this seriously, go to YouTube, find the video, and go to the Vimeo. I have a feeling that both of those aspects would have been considerably better having watched it there. If I had more time and more resources and didn't have to go to work tomorrow, then I would definitely have just rewatched it on Vimeo with headphones. But it's not really... I know it's a short film, but I just don't have time for it, considering I'm still expecting calls and things from people. There's some weird stuff going on. But yeah. I apologize for the sounds in the background. My roommate's phone is here and I don't want to touch it. But it keeps going off because she's a popular lady. So there are definitely some points in here where it's clear that, the character is not acting like a real human being would. There's one specific circumstance that really bugged me, and it's something that bugs me in 1,000 horror movies. I've seen it 150 million times, and it bugs the shit out of me when they do that. This does fall afoul of that in a couple of places, and that one specific place. Again, it's something I've seen in a lot of horror movies. It's something that happens in a ton of horror movies, so I can't really fault it very strongly. It is a pet peeve of mine, and I won't talk about it because it's kind of a spoiler, but bugs the shit out of me. Most of the time, though, I understand, to a certain extent why things go the way that they do. It's not a gigantic problem or anything. I don't think there are too many gigantic problems with this, as far as that's concerned. But it is probably something worth noting. I really wish I could talk more about, how and why everything in this is so weird and what makes it different from other things, but all of that boils down to spoilers. Not even just, moderate spoilers. It is the reason why you would want to watch this. So I don't want to give those away. But it is definitely unique. It does a lot of things that I haven't quite seen and definitely haven't seen in a short film. Now, that is not to say that there are not legitimate failures beyond just the horror movie antics where people are just not doing things the way humans react to things. But all in all, I think the freshness of it, for me personally, as someone who's watched as many horror movies in a row as I have, I feel like the freshness of that is really important for my enjoyment of this and of other things. When I've seen 17 movies with the same premise, you have to really do something different to make it worth my while. And this one is just different enough that I think it really does fall into that. Probably the biggest problem with this movie in general is the effects. There are some effects that are done well. There are other effects that are really, really done not well, including the very final kind of moment of the movie. And that is disappointing. Now, I don't think it outweighed in my particular case. I don't think it outweighed the good and the just the strange feeling that I got watching it from everything just being a little bit off. So that's definitely worth noting. But it is always a little bit of a letdown when they build up to something and then the thing that they build up to just does not live up to what it could have been. It kind of reminds me a little bit, not this particular movie, but movies in general, where the ending, they go for some huge effect, some huge ambitious effect, and can't achieve it. There's an episode of the Doug cartoon. I'm sure probably most of you saw it, if you're anywhere near my age range. But there's an episode where he wants to go to see a horror movie in the theater because everybody's talking about it and it's the craziest thing ever. And he goes to see it and he covers his eyes when they reveal the monster. There's this whole build up and he's terrified for the movie and he covers his eyes when that happens. Well, I think he goes a number of times trying to watch it and keeps not being able to make it to the end. And when he finally does, he, opens his eyes and realizes like it's a terrible costume. You can see the zipper on it. It just looks ridiculous. And I feel like that's kind of how that is. And he just laughs about it and it realizes that everybody who thought it was so scary and crazy, none of them had actually like opened their eyes to see that. They had all hid and none of them had actually been brave enough to see it. So it kind of feels a little bit like that. Like that's unrelated. That portion of it is unrelated, but just the build up to something and everybody is, being so terrified or whatever. And then you actually get to the thing and it's not good. Like that's kind of a theme. And I understand budgets and stuff. And I think that's possibly why if this was, a multi-million-dollar project from a major movie studio, obviously like that would be unacceptable. But within, to me, even if it doesn't look good, yeah, they probably should have known not to go for something quite so ambitious if they weren't going to be able to achieve it. But that said, I think the overall feeling of this being quite different from some of the stuff that I've watched was enough for me personally to enjoy it regardless of that. I don't really know that there's very much else that I can really say about this one. I'm very distracted and tired and still sick. If you can't hear it in my voice, I don't know how much of that comes across on the recorder, but I'm still sick. It's been over a week now, I think, that I've been sick. And I just started feeling worse the last couple of days. I probably have been sounding a little bit worse the last couple of days. So, apologies for any lack of being able to talk about anything in this one. And also getting distracted and having sounds in the background. Definitely not the greatest episode. But anyway, so that's my review of Delivery. This one is from 2018 as far as I could tell. It doesn't have an IMDb page, but that's when the video was at least posted to YouTube, was in January of this year. And that's my review. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed the podcast for some reason, then please rate, review, subscribe, whatever it is on whatever site that you found us. If you would like to help out the show, the best way you can do so is to share it with someone that you love or with someone that you think would enjoy the podcast. Maybe don't share this episode unless they really like Doug or something. But if the person that you're sharing it with does not have the same platform as you, or if you don't like the platform that you found us, then we are available on YouTube, Player FM, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, Podcast Addict, and pretty much any podcatcher out there. If you would like to reach out to me on social media, you can do so on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, or you can email me at reclusehorror@gmail.com. And so with that, I'm going to go edit this podcast and get it up and hope I can get close to 8 hours of sleep before I have to go into work tomorrow for my Friday. So, and maybe, hopefully I'll wake up and not feel awful. Anyway, have a good night.